So in 2022, I was really obsessed with the way that I looked and just had a hyper focus on getting into good shape. I remember watching all the YouTube videos and looking up different dieting guides online. And I remember looking at like the keto diet, the carnivore diet, and different kind of workout splits, just trying to find the secret magic sauce that was going to get me jacked and lean. But I just remember looking back on it, the way that my lifestyle was just super inconsistent. So throughout the week, I would be eating in a huge calorie deficit where I would be eating less than 2,000 calories every single day. I'd be weightlifting, doing cardio, and you can imagine just how exhausted and depleted I felt at the end of the day. Then come the weekend, I would go out and I would drink a bunch of alcohol and totally binge eat and undo all of my progress. And I remember feeling really down in the dumps at that time because I felt like I was putting in all of this work, doing all of this dieting throughout the week just to make zero progress at the end of the day because I completely undid everything by my binge eating. Now, this is what we call in the fitness industry a yo-yo diet, which is probably the biggest trap that you can fall into, where you're putting in all of the work, and on one hand, you're at the extreme end of the diet, and then you're binge eating and going to all the way to the other extreme and undoing all of your progress. And so that leads me into tip number one, is we want to avoid the extremes when we're dieting. Now, trust me, as somebody who used to be over 200 pounds at 5'8", I know how enticing the idea of dropping 50 or 60 pounds super quickly sounds. For most people, especially if you're a beginner or somebody who hasn't done a serious diet before, the way you're actually gonna make progress is through a very moderate, low calorie deficit, but just over a consistent period of time. The idea that we're just gonna extreme calorie deficit our way into a great physique is not going to feel very good. It's not going to be very pleasant. And for most people, it's just not something that you're actually going to be able to stick to. So what I'd recommend is a moderate calorie deficit of about 250 to 300 calories, and just do that sustainably over time. You can expect to lose about a half pound to 0.75 pounds of fat per week, but you'll be able to sustainably do it, which after 5 years of dieting, that would be the advice that I would give to anybody, is look for sustainability over quick hits of dopamine that you get from losing a ton of weight really quickly, because the likelihood that you're going to rebound and gain it all back is very high if you're not a professional dieter, which is probably most people. Now, the second tip I have to make losing weight a lot easier is actually switching the quality of your diet. Calorie deficits are great, but not all calorie deficits are created equal. And in my opinion, you're going to make your life a lot easier if you actually try to be in a calorie deficit while eating whole, high nutrient foods. This would include things like animal meats like cuts of steak or ground beef or chicken, vegetables like broccoli and carrots and lettuce, and fruits like apples, oranges, and strawberries. Just all the basic stuff that we already know is good for you. The reason I recommend doing this is because if you try to be in a calorie deficit while eating a bunch of highly processed junk food, it's going to be really difficult. The reason why is if you think about it from a calorie perspective, your body is getting a lot of empty calories when you eat junk food. If you're eating cookies and cake and Oreos and all that stuff, sure, you're getting calories, but the calories that you're getting aren't providing a whole lot of nutrients to your body. So if you've ever eaten a bunch of junk food, you're probably familiar with that feeling of feeling physically full, but still feeling kind of hungry in terms of not feeling satisfied, if that makes sense. And the reason why that happens is because your body is, yes, physically filled with food, but at the same time, your body's like, dude, what is this? Like, this is not what we need for fuel. We need actual nutrients. So that's why you end up in that kind of weird situation where you're physically full, but still technically hungry too, because you just are nutrient deficient. And so that's why I'd recommend switching to a whole, clean diet when you're trying to lose weight, because it's going to make that calorie deficit feel a lot easier, and you're actually going to feel like you have the energy and the proper amount of nutrients when you eat clean. And then the last thing I'd recommend, guys, and this is more of a mental tip, but just be patient with yourself. I think it's really easy to get down on yourself if you have been dieting for, 2 or 3 weeks and you feel like you're not where you want to be. But what you have to realize is no matter what you're doing, whether it's weightlifting or building a business or getting lean for the first time, everything that's worthwhile is going to take time. And I know that that's not as fun as me sitting here and saying, making like a super high energy video that tells you that you can lose 100 pounds in 2 days by doing this veggie hack. I know that that's like not as fun as hearing that, but I want to be real with you guys so you can actually make progress and not just like throw a bunch of useless information at you. And the truth that I've learned is just you got to be patient, and you got to give yourself a little bit of grace too, because you're a human being. And I just remember like back in the days where I was hyper focused on how I looked and where I was really trying to lose weight and I was obsessing over it but not making progress. I just remember like the kind of mental battle that I was in, and I realized that I probably just should have had a little bit more grace for myself. And yes, it's true that I wasn't doing things right, and yes, I was making mistakes, but looking back on it, I'm like, that was all part of the learning process, and I needed to make those mistakes so that I actually knew how to do it the right way. So leave a little bit of space for grace. You are a human being. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. That's part of learning. But the most important part is just get back to it the next day. If you mess up, don't quit. The only way to truly fail is if you actually just quit altogether. So just don't quit. Get back to it the next day, and you will make progress. Now, lastly, guys, I did want to mention that if you're interested in getting a deeper dive on how to get lean, how to get jacked, how to get into the best shape of your life, then I made a school called the Aesthetic School, where I put together everything that I know about fitness, which includes both of my books, The Aesthetic Mindset and The Aesthetic Protocol, which is all things physical and all things mental. And then there's also 2.5 hours of video lectures, literally where I just treat this like a school, where we go over all things that you need to do step by step to get into great shape. So I wanted to provide as much value as I possibly could. And then I'll also be reaching out to everybody who joins the Aesthetic School so we can work one-on-one and actually talk about what we need to do to achieve your fitness goals. So I'll leave that linked in the description down below if you're interested. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.